Hi folks, Steve Kaposi at the Adventuring and Camping School in Northeast Thailand. I'm just going to continue a series of videos on natural shelters. I call them P.E.N.S, P.E.N.S, or Primitive Emergency Natural Shelters. And I've already got two videos in this playlist, my shelter playlist, the raised platform shelter, which was my invention, and the SAS style raised bed. So there are two videos already in this playlist. I just want to show you this structure here. And you're looking at the three main other types of natural or primitive emergency or natural shelters you ever want to build. Now this one is two tripods. The tripod at that end is the same as this tripod here, with a ridge pole. Then you make a frame over it and you put your roof material on there. We'll talk about the roofs, we'll talk about the frame in future videos. Now ideally your ridge pole wants to be between two handy trees with forked branches where you can just put a ridge pole between two trees, hang it up, and if you do that it's going to be strong, sturdy, and you won't need tripods. You save yourself half your work. But this system here is assuming no trees, okay? No trees, just two tripods. The other option is if you have a tree which is just one big trunk coming up, there's no branches or wires where you can put a ridge pole into, you can just make the A-frame part of the tripod and rest it up against the tree, and the tree becomes your third tripod support. Okay, so there's two options. Your first choice is a ridge pole between two branches, forks in trees and so forth. Your second choice is an A-frame up against the tree, and the tree becomes your tripod. Or if you've got no trees, like I have here, for demonstration purposes only here really, is two tripods. Okay, so obviously a ridge pole wants to be at least 8 feet long. You get overhang, and you've got a shelter that is 6 feet long. It's potentially longer if you're covering the end tripod. You've got all that extra area as well inside the shelter, but we'll talk about those in future videos. And of course, in this setup with a ridge pole, you've got yourself your two main shelters, because you can have your standard lean-to shelter, which is one large opening at the front, and you're inside there. Or if you have a full A-shaped roof, you have your opening at the end here, you close off the other end. Now you can even close off one side or one half of the tripod and just have the opening here. You can then bring an awning down to about here and just crawl in there, so the options are endless. There's advantages and disadvantages for both. The opening at the front is going to be good to have a fire out the front here. You can have people in there. You get plenty of warmth going into your shelter. You get convection currents and the warmth from the fire going in there. You can have a reflector fire behind, and the heat's going to go in there. The problem is, I think there's less rain protection, because if the rain comes in at this angle, potentially half your shelter is going to be rained on, and that doesn't give you good coverage. So the standard lean-to with an opening in the front will give you good warmth from a fire, but poor space inside, especially when it rains. To me, the full A-frame roof is the best, but you may get less warmth from a fire. You're going to have your fire here, but if you look at this arrangement here, you can still get plenty of heat going in there. Now in a hot environment, I'm in Thailand, that doesn't matter so much, but in a cold environment, you want warmth from your fire. But your full A-frame roof is going to give you best protection from weather, wind, and especially rain. And if I closed off half the tripod opening there with a roof here, I can still have a fire here with heat going in there. With firewalls, reflectors at the back, I've got it made. So there are two choices really, the standard lean-to and the full A-frame lean-to. And I'm thinking the full A-frame lean-to is better, but you know, it just depends on which way you prefer. If you don't have much rain and you just want warmth from a fire, then maybe the standard lean-to with a large opening at the front is the best. So two tripods, 8-foot ridge pole, at least 6 feet long. You've got a foot overhang or a bit of overhang to play with. And there's plenty of room in there for two or three people in a pinch can lay down. It's a one-man shelter, 2 people easily. And again, this end part where the tripod support is forms an alcove which you can cover up. So it's more than 6 feet long inside, and the end becomes a space where you can store gear, firewood and so forth. So they're the quick basics to the main structure you ever want to make as far as a pen shelter is concerned. A primitive emergency natural shelter. 2 tripods and a ridge pole. You make a natural debris sort of roof with whatever materials you have wherever you are in the world. We'll talk about the roof in future videos. There's 3 main roofs to make. Debris roof, a thatch roof and a shingle roof. But normally you're going to be making a debris roof where you're just putting materials on the roof to cover it up. And you can see my opening at the front. That's the standard lean-to. If you make a full A roof with the opening at the end, that's a full A roof lean-to. The 2 ways to make it. And I'm thinking the full A roof is actually the best way to go. Okay, so they're the main features for this style of shelter. And the last point I need to make, and again we'll get to that in future videos, if you take away one whole tripod, put the ridge pole straight down on the ground, keep 1 tripod, you've got yourself your most basic tripod emergency shelter. It's the quickest and easiest to make because you're only making 1 tripod. And the ridge pole should preferably be a bit longer and sturdier if you do that system. So this was just the first video in my series of videos on natural shelters. I'm going to keep working with this same shelter here, just show you the frame, show you the roof and so forth. Eventually when I've finished with this shelter, I'm going to take away 1 tripod and just show you the standard tripod emergency shelter with 1 tripod and a ridge pole going down to the ground. But this has more room, more space. There are 2 tripods and a ridge pole, which gives you much more room and comfort. And as soon as you do that, you can have 2 or 3 people slide in there and have a shelter quite easily. And of course, this can be a lot smaller, don't forget. The ridge pole is up to my chest here. You can make it lower, smaller, but everything wants to be 45-degree angles. And if I just crawl in like this, you can see how much room there is. 2, 3 people can lay down here quite easily. And all these poles are just 6-foot poles basically. They are bamboo, but you can use wooden poles. And I'll see you for the next videos.